Hello everybody. Clay Frederick of the horror franchise. Back at it with a Resident Evil Requiem video. It appears that IGN has dropped a preview. Let's take a look at it. Whoops. I screwed up. Let me try this again.
Triumphant return of Leon Kennedy, Resident Evil Requiem is forced to straddle an awkward line between all-out action and methodical survival horror. I'll be honest, before getting my hands on the game and seeing the transition in action, I was extremely skeptical that Capcom would be able to create a coherent experience involving both Leon and Grace, the latest highly vulnerable protagonist.
Mama Grace, don't die on me. You ugly, yeah!
Hey, over here. The switch between their polar opposite styles sounds jarring, which is almost never a good thing. And although it's been a while, it's not like we haven't been burned by Capcom's desire to push the series towards action before. But I'm pleased to share that, from my all too brief 3 hours of hands-on time with Resident Evil Requiem, not only does this design really work, but there's also a lot more going on than just a merging of Resident Evil's greatest hits.
That's too effective.
Oh yeah, it is.
My playtime started with a short test drive of Leon, and Resident Evil 4 muscle memory kicked in immediately. Make no mistake, this plays just like the recent remake, enhanced with some new clever additions suitable for a veteran badass. Leon is more handy than ever, with a deadly hatchet that he can swing mercilessly added to his regular arsenal. Leon can also heave axes found in the world, can perform new contextual finishing moves,
Dead Space Gore!
And finally wield the violent chainsaw. There was once a time when Leon feared the chainsaw, but now Leon has become Chainsaw, destroyer of ghouls. After a short 15 minutes, the gameplay shifted perspective to Grace Ashcroft, Requiem's second protagonist, picking up her journey immediately after the events of the previous demo I wrote about in August last year. Grace and Leon are polar opposites, gone with the tense gunfights and forward momentum of Resident Evil 4, as I was immediately thrust into what felt like a sterile, white, clean version of Resident Evil 7. For the next 2 hours, I explored the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Centre, a somewhat traditional Resident Evil mansion that contains much of what you might expect among its rooms and corridors, but with plenty of new surprises. Surprises that mostly arise thanks to Grace's abilities, or rather, lack thereof. Much like in the previous demo, Grace's section was focused almost exclusively on survival horror. She is armed with a small pistol that she finds in the environment, but her firepower and combat skills are negligible compared to our favourite floppy-haired icon. Where Leon can roundhouse kick zombies in the face, Grace makes do with a clumsy push. Leon is all-out assault, but the best course of action for Grace is slow and deliberate stealth. Because if you do try to take some of the new enemies head-on, you're gonna have a bad time. Last year's demo revealed a new and much celebrated stalker enemy, a towering, hunched, bug-eyed warden.
Oh my god!
Within the span of my short 3-hour session, I was introduced to another two, giving me the impression that Resident Evil Requiem won't have one Mr. X or Nemesis-like persistent threat, but rather several smaller pursuers that seem to guard certain wings of the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Centre. Most notable was a hulking mass of blubber called Chunk, who burst through the wall and into my heart as he slowly but surely
looks like the baby from Village!
Walls, stairwells and doorways.
Hell no!
Uniquely, Chunk fills the space entirely, so your only chance of survival is to find and navigate loops built into the level design in order to outmaneuver the walking lardass. It's a clever design that generates a somewhat living, breathing wall of terror, and one you can't simply sidestep or combat roll away from. Much like the stalker I escaped last year, Chunk is cleverly implemented into the context of traditional safe rooms. Where the room's bright light caused the previous stalker pain, Chunk simply can't physically squeeze his sheer mass through the door, making sure that there's a logical in-world justification for a room of respite. As well as Chunk, I also ran into a 7-foot-tall hulking unit masquerading as a chef, who, until he noticed me, was completely focused on his chopping chores. This soon-to-be stalker wasn't yet in searching mode. Rather, he was fulfilling, I assume, his pre-infection duties. And this kind of behaviour isn't unique to the chef. It turns out in Resident Evil Requiem, the traditional zombie fodder is just as much a star of the show. You see, zombies not only talk now, but also have their own personalities. The undead are no longer unfortunate generic lost souls, but rather husks that retain a smidge of living personalities, hanging out in the space that they once occupied. There's the lounge singing shrieker in the bar area, who, before being alerted, entertains herself by belting out a ditty. There are the zombies who are formerly patients in recovery that insist on wheeling around their drip stands, which are then, unsurprisingly, wielded as a weapon when they get aggroed. Some zombies hate loud noises and will repeatedly yell at you if you even so much as smash a vase. And then there's the one that loves nothing more than turning lights on and off until you rudely interrupt him.
I don't like the lights.
If it's not clear by now, Resident Evil Requiem, aside from being packed with action and fear, is also now funny. Something that the series has never, at least intentionally, achieved before.
Yeah!
As Grace creeps
Boulder
around
puncher!
there's the continual threat that around every corner awaits horror, or laughter, or sometimes even both. When you can hear the undead nattering away in a room you know you have to enter to achieve your next objective, it's hard to know whether to be scared or have a good chuckle. On paper, this sounds like it could be awful. I'm aware of that, but honestly, it's so good. I laughed so hard when I caught one particular dopey zombie red-handed, both literally and figuratively, lifting a large and importantly red canister to throw my way. I'm sure you can imagine what happened next. The zombie fodder isn't just around to entertain and quickly be disposed of though. As Grace, the undead are a significant threat, always moving a little faster than you anticipate. Their fallen corpses also pose a significant conundrum, as they have the ability to turn into blister heads. A reinvention of Resident Evil Remake's Crimson Heads for a new generation, that reanimate with a bulbous cranium and become significantly tougher to take down. Fortunately, Grace has a new tool at her disposal. A hemolytic injector that weaponizes the buckets of blood lying around the place. Seriously, it's everywhere. Creating a lethal injection that can be used as a preventative measure against blister heads when injecting a fallen enemy, and as a stealth attack against anything that's still moving. Beyond the new enemy types, playing as Grace does feel familiar if you've played either Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 2, although obviously it leans more towards the latter if you choose to play as Grace in third person. You're exploring a huge mansion with locked doors, there are obtuse puzzles to solve, antique coins to find that can upgrade your equipment, Mr. Raccoons to shoot, safe rooms with a typewriter for saving and a storage box for inventory management, and so forth. Leon, however, can brute force open certain doors that Grace can't, and is far more aggressive with combat compared to Grace's methodical stealth. You can also choose to play as Leon in first person, though after a brief dabble, it felt very unnatural to do so. I can't help but think Capcom built the game with Leon in third person and Grace in first person in mind, but it's hard to complain about more choice, despite knowing deep down the development team surely had a preference. My demo ended with a second, all-too-short stint as Leon, which allowed me to revisit sections of the care centre I'd previously experienced with Grace. Interestingly, this section demonstrated perhaps my favourite element of this hybrid experience. Leon is also exposed to some of the tougher combat encounters that I'd suffered through as Grace, although the perspective, much like my viewpoint of choice, is very different. When I met Chunk as Grace, I immediately retreated and was forced into a game of cat and mouse. The threat is intimidating and encourages you to tread lightly. As Leon, however, emboldened by my newly acquired shotgun, I felt instantly trigger happy, unloading shells right up into Chunk's face and launching hatchet attacks on his head as part of a fight that felt somewhat reminiscent of the El Gigante encounters in Resident Evil 4. To Grace, Chunk and his fellow creeps are stalkers. To Leon, they're targets. This ethos was reaffirmed when taking on a wave of blisterheads with Leon at the end of my playtime. With Grace, I waited patiently for a stealth attack opportunity. With Leon, I was hurling hand grenades and throwing axes for fun. This year is the 30th anniversary of the Resident Evil series, so it feels like no coincidence that 2026's Resident Evil Requiem is combining the best ideas of the saga into what appears to be a fantastically constructed tribute to everything that makes the series so great. Do you like tense survival horror? It's here. Want to go all guns blazing with intense action and a quip-obsessed hero? You get to do that too.
I
Do you
like
prefer
both,
playing
so I'm
Resident
good.
Evil games in first or third person? Doesn't matter. You can do either. All of these choices, along with my fears of a jarring play experience being mostly squashed, make it easy to believe that Capcom's bold move to have its cake and eat it is going to pay off in a big way. If you like that video and want to find out more about Resident Evil Requiem, why not check out my previous preview where I discuss another Stalker enemy in great detail. And for everything else, be sure to stick with IGN.
Alright. Very interesting. Blending survival horror and action. I like both. If you've watched my live streams of the Resident Evil series, the mainline games mostly, you know I like both. So, there's that. There we go. We're a month away. We are officially a month away from Resident Evil Requiem's release. And I'm pretty excited. This is my second most anticipated game of this year. Number one being obviously Halloween the game, as everyone knows by now. But yes, let's see what Grace Ashcroft and Leon S. Kennedy have in store for the newest entry into the Resident Evil world, as far as story and gameplay. As far as story goes, we still know very little. I think there's more to come once we get our hands on that game. Alright, so that's all I got for y'all today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like content like this. And I will see you on the next one.